One of the key things to understand as we head into the first debate tomorrow is that the Republican primary or Republican presidential politics is not actually entirely about Donald Trump. It is as much about President Joe Biden and the way that the hermetically sealed conservative universe understands and depicts Joe Biden. In their minds, the president is both a venal and preposterous figure. He's the corrupt head of the so-called Biden crime family who has been, unbeknownst to anyone, apparently, taking illegal bribes for years, just not caught. Of course, there's no evidence that's true. But according to conservatives, the president is also a national laughingstock. He's a feeble old man being propped up by aides who everyone thinks is incompetent.
Well, I think they're all alarmed at the president's condition. He's obviously senile. He's faltering. It's not going to get better between now and Election Day and beyond.
Wouldn't the energy levels on that stage between the former president and the current president be pretty shocking for viewers?
Well, they might be, Mike.
Oh, the former president who's like a year and a half younger, that one, the 78-year-old? This perception of Joe Biden, feeble and venal and ridiculous all at the same time, is so ingrained, so taken for granted in conservative media. There's just no room for any other understanding of the man or his political appeal or the tens of millions of people who voted for him. We have such a great new example of that in a video posted by the Republican National Committee's opposition research team, right? They're supposed to find like the gotcha quotes, like, oh, look at this. This is a moment from President Biden's trip to the devastated island of Maui. And to be clear, the RNC thinks this clip makes Joe Biden look bad.
What's the boss's name? I said, how you doing, pal? You guys catch the boots out here? That's a hot ground, man.
Now, I think most people watch that and think, that's a nice moment. The president obviously likes dogs. He's concerned about the dog's welfare. It's hot there in the fire area. And I think most Americans like dogs, too. But Republicans posted this like, get a load of this loser. They have zero idea, truly, zero, like, intuitive, subjective sense of how anyone could like the guy, how anyone could vote for him. And you can see their complete and utter confidence in this recent polling from NBC News and the Des Moines Register. 65% of likely Iowa Republican caucus goers say that a president who comes closest to them on the issues is most important to them, versus 29% who say they are most concerned with picking a candidate who has the best chance of beating President Biden. And the reason for that is they're not prioritizing electability, and this shows up in all polling, because they're not worried about it. They are not worried they're going to lose to Joe Biden. They think anyone can beat Joe Biden. Now, you could say that this is not just conservatives. You can say the same was true of liberals who couldn't understand how anyone would vote for Donald Trump in 2016. But of course, Trump managed to win the election quite infamously, despite losing the popular vote by several million votes. And that shock precipitated 4 straight years of reckoning as countless journalists from mainstream to progressive, center-left, establishment, anti-establishment, all did the same reporting, asked how they missed Donald Trump's appeal. They talked to Trump voters over and over and over again. And it became kind of a punchline, right? Like the Trump supporter in the diner who says they still like Trump. How much the media wrestled with this, how much they obsessed over it. But it did at least represent a needed correction to the overconfidence a lot of people on the left and center-left had before that election. That reckoning has never happened on the right. You would think that that reckoning would have come when their beloved God King, Donald Trump, lost to the guy they think is a ridiculous senile joke, Joe Biden, in 2020. And that election was not close. Donald Trump lost by 5 points almost, 4.5, 7 million votes and 4.5 points. He lost by a wider margin than a whole bunch of other loser Republicans, from Herschel Walker to David Perdue to Kelly Loeffler and Martha McSally. You never hear about those people, do you, anymore? You know why? Because they were losers. They lost, so no one cares what they think about politics. Donald Trump got his butt kicked way harder than they did. This is why Donald Trump's big lie is so important, right? Along with the cult of personality still surrounding him. It's key to understanding this weird phenomenon in the Republican Party, the politics at this moment. The vehemence with which conservatives still insist the 2020 election was rigged, it protects them from this reckoning. There's no way the American people actually chose Joe Biden as their president. He never left his basement. It's a kind of psychological defense mechanism. They don't want to accept that the man they are so devoted to is a loser. And deeper down, I think it's also an expression of a belief that people who voted for Joe Biden aren't really the real Americans. They don't really count. The MAGA folks are the ones who should be running this country, even if they're outnumbered. The big lie and the cult of personality surrounding Trump keeps the ruse going that he won and that Joe Biden is a loser, when it's the other way around. That way, conservatives don't have to deal with the reality that Republican politics are minority politics. When the nation en masse comes out to vote, they're on the losing side over and over and over again. The only way to pierce Donald Trump's hold in the party is to convince some significant portion of the Republican primary electorate of the basic fact that the man is a loser. He is a bigger loser than many of his fellow Republicans in 2020. He's an even bigger loser than Mitt Romney was in 2012. If there's a first step to breaking Trump's grip on the party, it's hammering this simple truth.